Hey guys, it's Numastaka and I'm back with you for part 2 of Mr. Pulme's adventures in sovereign collecting. So, another box arrived containing part 2 of the collection. Probably a wise move when you're sending things in the post, never to put too much in one box. So we have part 2. Feedback from part 1 was very good. I think a lot of people enjoyed the sovereigns, and all the coins here, apart from 2, are also sovereigns, and the 2 that aren't sovereigns are quite often wrongly called sovereigns because they're kind of the same. So you'll see what I mean in a moment. So, without further ado and with no unnecessary delay, let's have a look at Mr. Poole here's next tranche of British sovereigns. And while I'm opening these up, maybe a good time to answer some questions from subs. And one of the questions I got was, well, what should I buy, proof or bullion sovereigns? And they said to me, well, I'm interested in 2002, 2005, 2012, 1989. Which one should I buy, proof or bullion? The first was very easy to answer because, of course, in 1989 there was only proof sovereigns. There were some BU5 sovereign pieces, and we've had some of those to grade, but the sovereign piece was only ever proof. Quite a few of them were produced, but everyone loves them, and they've got a great big premium, which seems to be forever growing and getting fatter and bigger. So 2002, 2005. Well, I actually think that the bullion and the proof are interesting. Obviously the proof is a more expensive item. Some of the 2002, 2005 proofs are very expensive. The bullion ones are easier to get hold of. You can often buy them for just a few pounds over any other run-of-the-mill sovereign. And I think if you can find them for anything up to maybe £20 or so more than a regular sovereign, they may be worth getting. There's also, of course, some special brilliant uncirculated coins. Certainly I've seen and owned a 2002 one, and when I sold it, it fetched a good premium. But 2005 I haven't seen, but there may very well be some for 2005 as well. So 2002, 2005, I would say get whichever one offers you value for money. If you like proofs, go for proofs. If you're a little bit of a value buyer, then go for the bullion coin. That leaves 2012. 2012, I think, is a funny year because the bullion sovereign looks absolutely horrible. It photographs horrible, it looks horrible, the design does not stand out, and if it was me, I wouldn't touch one of the bullion sovereigns from 2012 ever again. I've had one, I graded it, it just looked awful. It didn't give me any happiness or satisfaction in owning it. The proof sovereign from 2012 is completely different, and the proof sovereign I think is a very fine looking coin, and you don't see many about. I don't think the mintage was that high in 2012, and it really is quite unusual to come across them, and I've noticed that they are actually going for a bigger premium than the 2002 and the 2005 sovereign as well. So I hope that gives you some food for thought if you're thinking of special edition sovereigns. Maybe now we'll focus on some of the stuff that is coming up here in the video. I was talking in the last video about the late 1950s, early 60s sovereigns as being pretty good value. And it's actually very, very rare to find them as good as this lot are. Quite often there are lots of bag marks, but they're normally in pretty good condition. But I have to say, these are in great condition. Somebody commented that they thought that the previous lot of sovereigns, some of them would get kind of AU58 and below. I'm not so sure. I think we're quite surprised when these grades come back. I think a lot of these will be pretty high grade coins, and you can just see how clear the fields are on a lot of these coins. And you don't get some of these earlier Queen Elizabeth dates in such good condition. This one's a 1974. 74 was a year you don't see too often, although there were quite a few minted that year. 1966, the year England won the World Cup, and that year is very, very popular. I think people collect 1966 in particular. But look at the luster on this coin. I mean, this is great. I mean, if that isn't 65, 66, I don't know what is. Maybe I'm wrong, but we will see when the grading gods declare the grade of these coins. But I think there'll be some of these coins which do extremely well at NGC. Before, this particular collector has had quite a few coins which have been right at the very, very top of the NGC census. This was the one I particularly wanted to take a look at because it's a really interesting coin. It's 1953, which was the year of Queen Elizabeth's coronation. This one's been put in for NCS conservation just to make it a little bit better and sharper, but it starts in really amazing condition anyway. It's got a slightly different look and feel. Some collectors describe this as a sovereign. It's not a sovereign, it's a pound. I know maybe there's not very much difference between a pound, which is 20 shillings, and a sovereign, which is the same as a pound, but this one is called the pound rather than the sovereign. And they produce these in quite a few years from 1953 to early 1960, I think 61 or so, before South Africa became independent. And it's a really, really nice coin, and some of the mintages are actually pretty low. This 53, there were 4,000 proofs minted, but the 58, for example, there were, I think, just under 500, maybe just over 500 of the proofs minted. And we've got here a 1953 half pound, or half sovereign, and the full pound. You'll pay for an average one of these, they're going for anything up to about £500 for the sovereign. So they have a premium, but it's not a really, really big premium considering what a lovely historical coin it is. So if you see one of these, maybe worth picking one of these coins up if it's not too much of a premium. If you've been watching some of these sovereign videos, you might be forgiven for thinking, well, doesn't one sovereign look like any other sovereign? Do I really need so many of them? Who on earth would buy so many sovereigns, to try and get one from every year, from every mint? I mean, it's a really, really expensive thing to try and do. And I'm not suggesting that's for everybody, and I've made that suggestion also in other videos, that it's great just to have a few of these things. You don't need to go to extremes, but they do represent a reasonable value. And I mean, if you were just to collect sovereigns and, say, pre-33 American gold coins, you could build up a really interesting collection just focusing on those two. And I like pre-33, particularly half eagles, and half eagles, of course, are around about the same size as the sovereign. So there's a little bit, they're also same kind of cost for a basic coin as a sovereign, with quite a bit of variety as well, although maybe not quite as much variety in many ways as sovereigns give. There's a few more here. Edward VII. Look at that luster, really nice 1903 sovereign. Some of these coins will grade better than others, but they're all really good examples. And what you'll see coming up in a minute is actually, where it can get a little bit special to maybe own a sovereign that has a pedigree. Dogs have pedigrees, yep, but sovereigns can have pedigrees. Coins can have pedigrees too. The pedigree is about where this coin has come from and a little bit about its history, and whether it's come from a hoard, a shipwreck, a treasure of some sort. And I think that coins which have a history have a little bit of a premium. And certainly a lot of American coins which have come from a hoard or come with a pedigree go for quite a lot more over the regular coin. There's nothing intrinsically different about them. They're just another sovereign. But it's kind of interesting pausing to think about the history. And this particular one comes from a shipwreck which contained many, many sovereigns. So there's not exactly a shortage of Douro treasure sovereigns, but there's been very high-profile auctions by Spink and Sons, the famous British coin dealer, in 1996. And a lot of the coins that you see marked as Douro treasure can actually be traced back to specific lot numbers in the Spink 1996 auction, and then at other auctions that have happened since then. And coins with pedigree do get a special attribution by NGC, as you can see here. On the slab there's a spare line they leave for a pedigree, which sometimes you see the so-and-so named collection, or from the collection of so-and-so. That's also a kind of pedigree. So let's have a look at the Douro. As you can see here, she had two masts, and you've got a funnel in the middle, and she was a British passenger boat liner, not really a liner, but a working ship that was around from 1865 to 1882 with the Royal Mail Steam Packet Company until she was sunk in 1882. And you can see here that a lot of the coins that came from the Douro come with this certificate of authenticity that tells the story of the Douro. So this particular one here was an Australian one, minted in 1879. And this is the certificate that shows its provenance from the RMS Douro. That I think it was the 31st of March 1882. She was going between Buenos Aires in Argentina to Southampton in Britain, stopping in Brazil, Lisbon and Portugal. And she actually collided with another ship. And it all happened very quickly, and after 30 minutes she had sunk in about 1,500 feet of water, and then wasn't recovered and salvaged until later in 1995. And when they recovered the coins, they found 1,700 gold coins, most of which were gold sovereigns, and the auctions then raised about £1.5 million in recovered coins. So it's quite nice to have something with a pedigree, and as I said, it does make a difference. But even without a pedigree, gold sovereigns are pretty magnificent things when they're not kind of totally worn out. And this one's nice, 1891, nice sovereign, lots of lustre. An 1894 Sydney sovereign. Let's have a little look at this one. So this is a veiled head sovereign. Looks in nice condition. Tiny bit of few flecks on the fields, a tiny bit flat. We'll see how that one does with NGC. To be honest with you, the veiled head ones are not my absolute favourite, as I've said before. The one I would like actually in my collection is an 1893 proof, and at some stage I might save up or sell some other coins and buy one of those. I think if I only owned one veiled head sovereign, it would be the 1893 proof sovereign. Or is it the 1892? Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but the one that was around about that time anyway. Editor's note, it was actually the 1893 sovereign, and here one is in its total magnificence. There were only a few hundred pieces of this minted, and it's one of those that is definitely on my sovereign bucket list. So, moving on, let us continue the Sovereign tour through various George V small heads, large heads, different varieties. And it begs the question, if you were only to buy one sovereign, one very special sovereign, which sovereign would you buy? So let me have the answer to that down below in the comments. Which one? And I'll give you a play budget of up to, I don't know, how much do you guys need? Maybe, okay, $10,000. You've got $10,000 to go out and buy an ultimate sovereign. Which one would you get? Would you get a rare date? Would you get a rare mint? Would you get proof? Would you get bullion? What would you go for? Where would you spend your 10,000 play dollars if you could only have one single solitary sovereign? I'm not 100% sure what I would do, but I think maybe it would be one of the Queen Elizabeth rare VIP proofs, but then that will probably cost more than $10,000. In fact, it would definitely cost, that will be well over my budget. $10,000, maybe a 1924 South Africa sovereign. There were only a few hundred of those made. I don't know what I'd do. Maybe a very, very, very good condition 1817, 1818 BU coin, or even maybe a proof if I could get one. One of those kind of coins if you had so much money. On the other hand, if you had $10,000, would you buy a sovereign at all? What would you buy if you were to actually buy your ultimate coin for your own collection? Your budget of $10,000 would probably not stretch to this particular one. This was at the recent heritage sale at around $50,000. $50,000. $50,000! Wow. I'm not sure it sold at $50,000. Maybe it did. I mean, it's a very beautiful coin. This one, if you had $10,000 knocking about, you might be able to get some way towards this one. I think in a way just as beautiful. 1821 proof sovereign, also very rare. This is one that might just be within that old 10,000 budget because it's a 63 decam, and maybe there were a few more that graded a little bit better. So something for every budget, I think, in collecting sovereigns. And meanwhile, Mr. Pullme's sovereigns continue to go on and on. It's like the video that keeps on giving. 1931 Perth. This one's a George V small head sovereign. Small heads have a little bit more field area, so that they get more easily scratched, more easily bag marked. Slightly different look, subliminally to the regular one. I've got one of these, and the 1931 sovereigns I think had a fairly low mintage as well. I think I've got the 1930 Melbourne one in my collection, and that had a pretty small mintage. I'm not quite sure whether the same thing applies to the Perth one or the South African one. Probably does. I should look it up and add a note into the video somewhere. If you've got lots of the earlier date George V sovereigns, then it does no harm at all to add one or two of the small head varieties, so that you can try, like I did once, see what the difference is between them, and then find out just how little the difference is between the large head and the small head. Does it matter anyway? Well, not unless you're a bit of a sovereign buff, then it matters an awful lot. So we are almost reaching the end of this video of sovereigns, but actually there's still quite a way to go, and there's a few pedigree ones that are coming up, like this one. So this one, two lots of pedigree, ex Bentley collection. which is interesting in its own right, and Douro Salvage as well. So I'm going to try, if I can, to get both pedigrees put on the coin when it gets graded at NGC. Don't quite know what they're going to make of this. I'm going to send them the proof for both of those pedigrees and see whether they care to put both of them on, or they may just choose to put one or the other on. If they choose one, I'm not sure which is the most important. Probably the Douro Treasure. I don't know. There's a lot of coins you see around which are also ex-Bentley. We should probably make another video to talk about who Bentley was, apart from the car manufacturer. Nice coin. You can just see the luster on that field behind the shield, and how nicely the shield stands out. It's a really nice coin, that. So there you have it. Lots and lots of amazing sovereigns, and just when you think you've seen everything, there's always a few more things to see. And I'm looking forward to seeing how all of this grades. There's a lot here, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of results they get. And I should have one of my own Pedigree Sovereigns that I bought to send for grading, and that'll be the subject of another video sometime soon. So remember to comment and let me know what you think your dream magical sovereign might be for your $10,000 of play money. Thanks very much for watching, and there'll be a few more, not sovereign ones, but maybe a bit more variety sometime soon as well.